Hey everyone, Summer here with Astaria Sen, and I'm going to talk about my participation that's coming up in Goth Lit November. Now, what most people don't know about me is I did study Gothic literature when I was in college. I have my bachelor's in English, literary English, and Gothic literature is one of the ones I took. And I'm not going to say not a horror fan because technically I kind of am, but it does scare me a lot, so I don't read it very often. And for Gothlit November, it's brought on by I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget. It is brought on by Rachel over at Second Thoughts About the Mission. And then she's doing it in conjunction with another lady, Bailey, from Bailey Jean, like Bailey's Grind, Bailey Jean. I'll tag both of them down in the description. So the idea is that in November, you read Gothic literature books. Now you can do it from any of the subgenres of Gothic lit, the classic, the contemporary, the southern, and you can find out more about that if you go and watch Bailey's original video. She talks about the different categories, and then if you don't know what Gothic literature is, there is a great video that I watched that just really does a fantastic job really describing Gothic literature and the different subgenres of it, and it's done by Ava over at Ava's Literary Parlor, and I'll also link her down in the description as well. She did such a fantastic job. Like, even if you know what Gothic literature is, you should go over because her aesthetic is fantastic for that. So it's a reading tag, Gothlit November, and I'm going to draw my tarot into it as well. I'm not quite sure how yet, but I'll keep you posted on that part. Anyways, because I'm not big on being afraid, I did decide I am going to focus on Gothic romance. Does that surprise you? Gothic, it's not necessarily like horror, it's like a subgenre of horror, and it focuses more on like a terror aspect. It's like the unknown. And when I was taking Gothic literature, I read things like The Monk and The Fall of the House of Usher. We didn't read Jane Eyre, even though that is a Gothic literary romance, by the way. It's just a classic Gothic literary romance. But the idea is that it's not so much, horror. It's more focused on the unknown and that fear that's evolved around the unknown. And it's kind of mixed in with like these big elaborate like castles and towers and really like dark and eerie like landscapes and descriptions, and it's kind of just really elaborate and really neat. Actually, I don't read this genre enough because it's not my main genre. I'm firmly in like paranormal romance smut, okay? You give me monsters and you give me sex and I'm golden, hence Gothic romance, okay? But I'm not going to dip. Yes, Sasha, I hear you. She's so upset because I'm not paying attention to her right now. Can you see? She's just back walking by one. By the way, she's 14 years old. um, anyways, I'm not into super dark romance. Don't claw me. Ow. I'm not into super dark romance. I don't mind some dark and twisty stuff, but dark romance is very difficult for me to read. I don't like it. I don't want to read a lot of really rough dark romance that makes me go, oh my God, why am I reading this? I don't want to do that. So, but I figured Gothic romance, as long as I'm careful with what I'm reading, I can choose that it's not super dark. So I'm choosing two books. One of them I have read before, and I can give you a list of a few books I have read in the past that I think would fit well with Goth Lit November, if you want to try your hand at a couple of books that you might be interested in, and I'll talk a little bit about them. Anyways, the ones I'm going to be reading is The Scarletty Curse by Christine Feehan. Now, The Scarletty Curse is the first one. And it's Christine Pihan's one of my favorite paranormal romance authors, but the Scarletti Curse doesn't fall directly in her paranormal romance line. It comes kind of before the paranormal romance does, and it has like this big giant castle and all sorts. I'll read it to you in just a second. And the second one I'm going to do is called Hollow Heathens. Both of these are more contemporary, I guess. They're more modern. So there is that. So the one with Hollow Heathens, okay? I read a sample of it because I wasn't sure, but I got really involved in the sample. Okay, the main character is very interesting. So anyways, here it is. This is what it says. Once upon a time, there lived a girl named Fallon who was taken far away from home shortly after she was born, a home that held more than strange traditions and bizarre superstitions. 24 years later, she returned to Weeping Hollow, a town she'd only heard about in stories during restless nights under a marble moon, to take care of her last living relative. They called the nosy mortician a freak show, a ghastly thing. They said I couldn't go near her. Still, there was this aching pull to Fallon Grimwald that I couldn't escape, a nostalgic pull as if we'd been here before. Once upon a time, there lived a mysterious boy named Jillian with a curse as old as centuries wrapped around his soul. He was one of the 4 hollow heathens, the very dark creatures who caused the townspeople to live in fear, and the Blackwell name was stained with darkness and death. They called him a monster, cold and hollow. They said I shouldn't go near him. Still, there was the aching pull to Julian Blackwell that I couldn't escape, a nostalgic pull as if we'd been here before. Oh my gosh, like already I'm just like, okay, gotta find out more. I'm under the impression that it is a little bit on the steamy side. Okay, just so you know, I'm under that impression. And then the other one is Christine Pihan. Like I said, I've read this before. It was a long, long time ago though. Hollow Heathens I've never read, so I'm really interested and intrigued by that description. And I don't think that it's gonna be like Gothic with cathedrals and towers, but I could be wrong. But it still very firmly falls into the Gothic genre. So we'll see how much, because I'm going to keep track of these, like those annotating book things that are going on right now. I think I'm going to be doing that just to see how much these 2 books actually fall in Gothic. Like Hollow Heathens kind of is labeled as Gothic romance, whereas the Scarletti Curse isn't really labeled as Gothic romance. Okay, here we go. Ready? This does it. It sounds so Gothic. Okay, it really does. And like I said, I've read it before, and it's good. Okay, it's just tasty. Okay. All right. Strange, twisted carvings, hideous gargoyles adorn the palazzo of the great Scarletti family. But a more fearful secret lurks within its storm-tossed turrets. For every bride who enters its forbidden walls is doomed to leave in a casket. Nicolette knows all too well the curse that plagues the house of Scarletti. She's always believed her miraculous healing gifts would set her apart and that no man would ever command her. Then she gazes into the dark, mesmerizing eyes of Don Scarletti, and she fears for her future. For it is Scarletti's ancient right to select a bride from among his people, and he has chosen her. Compelled by duty, driven by burning, inescapable desire, Nicoletti surrenders to his powerful hypnotic man, giving her body willingly into his keeping. But will the tormented Dawn be her heart's destiny or her soul's destruction? So I know that that description doesn't necessarily scream Gothic, but when you're reading it, like there are so many hidden secrets and like twists and turns and things going on that aren't really what they seem, that it just falls so well within the Gothic romance idea for me. And since I have not actually done like a full in-depth, is this really Gothic romance kind of feel on this particular book during my rereading, because I already know what's going to happen in the story for the most part, even though I haven't read it in several years. Christine Pihan's one of my rereadables. I have rereadables. Not every book or author is rereadable, but she is. So I'm going to actually annotate and see where all the Gothic features like kind of sit and go. There's a lot of different things that that consider it Gothic, and that's what I want to find out if it truly is. All right, so there's that. I will find some decks, tarot decks to go with this. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to pull my tarot decks into Gothic November, but I will figure it out and then go from there. I think it'll be so fun. And November is such an in-between state for me, because Halloween's already happened, but it's not Christmas yet. It's not Yule. It doesn't have, that feel yet. So it's kind of like this in-between stage, which I think is so fantastic for like a surreal, eerie kind of lit type reading. So Gothic literature just falls so well into this like November feel for me. So I'm so excited about it. And again, like I said, if you're into horror, you can totally go all balls in, horror Gothic. They have that. And some of the classics are like that. Like my favorite one. Yes, I have favorites even in horror, okay? My favorite one is actually The Monk by Matthew Lewis. That one is intense. It's a classic. So it's older, much, much older. And it's got some really forbidden stuff in it. Like some really twisted, forbidden things in it. I read it for class. I don't think I would have ever read it if it wasn't for the fact that I had to read it in class. Like reading the description, it is not something I would have ever read. But having read it, it was phenomenal, okay? And it stuck with me. It's not like, I don't know, it wasn't like writing nowadays where I think of phenomenal writing and I'm like looking for those perfect quotes that are just so well written that they just like ring true, right? It's not like that. It's more like the way the story is and the way that the character is, it kind of just sits with you and it festers. Okay, so if that's your jam and you don't mind some classic literature, you should try The Monk. If you want a more modern take, not necessarily romance, Diane Setterfield actually has 2 novels that fall pretty heavily into Gothic literature in a different kind of way more modern. And there are a lot of others out there. Like when you watch the other videos, they're going to talk about a lot of other books that are related to Gothic literature. So I'm not going to give you a big spiel of a whole bunch. Like if you want more, go watch their videos. That's my encouragement. Go watch their videos, support them too. Go see what they have to talk about it. But Diane Setterfield did The 13th Tale. I loved that book. Oh my goodness. Her writing style is mesmerizing. It blew me away. I was reading it while I was in college too, not for Gothic lit. It was just for fun. A friend suggested it to me and I was like, I don't know, but I did it and I just, oh man, it was so insanely intense for me. And as an author myself, because yes, I've written books, but they're smut, guys, okay? They're just smut. And yeah, that's just the way it is. But as an author, I had such a huge appreciation for her writing style and some of the elaborate things that she like put together in her twisty, plotty stuff. And it does have a Gothic feel, but it's definitely more modern and it's like a story within a story kind of thing going on. And it definitely has some psychological stuff going on in there. Like that's definitely there. Maybe some ghosty stuff. I can't remember all the little details because like I said, this was years ago, but it's intense. It's so beautifully written. It floored me, as an author and as a reader. And I'm just like, wow. Like crazy wow. And I do have that book too, but it is again packed away. So, and I do believe, I feel like Diane Setterfield is a rereadable author because there's so much I missed in the first read through and I can't wait to get back to it again, but I'm going to wait for the actual physical copy. And I'm not going to read it for Gothic November because I'm also reading other stuff. I'm doing a read-a-thon, like a read-along-readathon for the next several months on one author, Cressley Cole, which is my favorite author. She has a new book coming out in March, and March, April-ish. And so we're starting with her first book in her series, and we're reading a book a week up until she releases that book. So I just finished the first book, and then we're getting ready to start the second book tomorrow, which is Monday, which is probably when you guys are going to see this video, by the way. So, yeah. So anyways, Gothlit November, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to see if my romance falls into my Gothic ideas based off what I know about Gothlit, based off what I watched in their videos. And I kind of just want to participate in it. I've been really into reading more these days. And I really do want to see if I can pull my tarot into it and see if I can make it work and like how I might make it work. Like I'm really curious about that. And then even what decks I'm going to choose. So as Gothlit November gets kicking off in the first week of November, I will pick my decks, I will do another video, and I will talk about maybe how I'm going to try to implement my decks into Gothlit November and see where it leads me. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a very great day.